Welcome to the Eagle and Child podcast, where we share the stories and thoughts of church history's heroes to inspire and equip the church of today. I'm your host, Layla Nahavandi. We hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello and welcome to the Eagle and Child podcast. It's so great to have you with us today. I am super excited about this episode. We are going to be talking about an incredible woman in history that I've wanted to do an episode on forever. And I had the pleasure of meeting our guest, Pastor Katie Milgate, just a few months ago at our Theos conference in Palm Springs. And as we were talking, she starts talking about Susanna Wesley. And I was like, oh my gosh, can you please do a podcast for us on the Eagle and Child podcast on Susanna Wesley? And so here we are today, Pastor Katie Milgate and her husband, Joel, and their 4 kids over in New Zealand pastor a church called Curate Church in 2 different locations. It's in Auckland and it's in Tauranga in New Zealand. So definitely Hobbit land where they live. And she is an incredible woman of God, as I mentioned, a mum of kids from the age of 10 to 20. So definitely got her hands full there, pastoring a church as well. And so Pastor Katie, thank you so much for making the time to be with us here on the Eagle and Child podcast. It's an honor to have you with us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. And I get to talk to a friend about just a wonderful person. So this is fun.
Come on. And we've got our cups of tea here as well. It's cold in Australia and in New Zealand today. So if you see us taking a drink, that's why.
It's so cold.
Yeah, we definitely need the tea. So can you give us a bit of an introduction into this lady, Susanna Wesley? Who is she? Maybe people know her because, you know, they've heard of John Wesley, Charles Wesley, but yeah, who is Susanna Wesley?
Okay, so Susanna Wesley, she's just an absolute hero of mine. Yeah. She was born in 1669 and she was born into, get this, a family of 27. So she was the 25th child. Can you imagine?
That's insane.
I've birthed 4 children and I can't even fathom how one can do that. But anyway, so she was the youngest of 25 children. Her father was an Anglican minister, and so she grew up around the church. Her father had scholars in his home all the time. She knew the word of God. That's how she was raised. And when she was 19, she married Samuel, who was also an Anglican minister. He was a curate at that point, I believe. And they proceeded to have 19 children. Only 10 of them survived, which is just so brutal. But what she is most known for is 2 of the children that she raised, John and Charles Wesley, and there's so much to be said about them, and they are absolutely a huge accomplishment, but I really want to stick to her. Her legend that she is.
Yeah, and even just like giving birth to 19 children herself, what the heck is that?
Ridiculous.
Wow, how crazy. That's amazing to hear that, you know, John and Charles Wesley had 8 other siblings. I wonder what they were up to. You know?
Yeah.
They must feel like the losers in the family.
Oh, I know. Yeah. That's tough.
That's very tough.
Very amazing.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, so can you tell us maybe a little bit about her life? What did her life look like? You know, you mentioned that she's like raising these kids and what was sort of daily life like for Susanna Wesley?
Yeah. Well, massively challenging life. She had a lot of suffering. I mean, there's the obvious suffering of the grief of all of those children that didn't make it. But then also they, in this particular parish that they were in, when we say something that people are offended by, we just get a mad email. But I mean, they would have their crops torched.
Oh my God.
They would mock the children. So the children got a really hard time from adults. I mean, I just wonder if they're even Christians. Apparently they tormented their animals, their cows, and they even had their house burnt down. So really tough life. Samuel was a great man. He was also a really strong-willed guy, just as Susanna was. So there was a bit of friction in the home. He was a bit of a drinker, it is said, and didn't manage the finances very well. And actually, there was one point that one of the parishioners demanded that he paid a debt on that very same day, and he couldn't pay it. And so he was put into prison. And he remained there for a little while until, in the end, the church paid for his release. They paid the debt to be released.
Imagine if that happened today. So scandalous.
Imagine it.
It would be on every news outlet.
Every news outlet. So wasn't easy, but she was incredible. So she raised these amazing young men. That wasn't an accident. So she would spend it. They said every week she would choose one of her 10 children and she would spend a few hours with them, and it would basically be a conversation of spiritual direction. She would be asking them about their faith. She would be discipling them just so intentionally. And I so admire that. I know that as a mum, and I've got 4 children, I can feel a real difficulty when it comes to giving them that one-on-one time. And so I'm so inspired by her intentionality to just make it happen. And as well as that, she educated them too.
Crazy. So she's homeschooling 10 kids.
Yes.
She's discipling each one of them one-on-one. She's dealing with a husband who's in and out of jail, mishandling funds, pastoring a church, and alcoholic. Wow, what a crazy environment that she found herself in. What is she sort of known for? Like, were there any significant events or anything? Like, obviously she's raised these incredible, revivalists, John and Charles Wesley, but is there anything that she's specifically that happened with her or anything that she wrote?
Yeah. Well, one of the things she's really known for, it came about because Samuel was going for this long conference, and it must have been quite a while because they ended up appointing an interim minister there. And so apparently nobody liked him, including Susanna.
Oh my God.
Didn't like his teaching. He wasn't meeting the spiritual needs of her children, and apparently nobody liked him because he owed debts to everybody, and every week he preached on paying your debts, and so they found him a bit of a hypocrite. And
oh my God.
Anyway, she saw this opportunity, was like, this is not okay. I can do something about it. And so it started with her own children and servants. And she led this afternoon service on a Sunday afternoon, and she would read a psalm, they would sing some hymns, and then she would read one of Samuel's sermons from his sermon book. And that's how it started. And then families started coming, and then more families started coming, more families started coming. And in the end, they moved into a barn that could kind of house what was going on.
Oh my gosh.
It was said that the minister at the time, the interim one, he did not like what she was doing. Perhaps he was a little bit jealous. And so
of course. He
wrote letters to Samuel trying to get him to stop his wife. And he wrote her a letter saying, perhaps these should stop. And she respectfully declined, said that the only person that was upset about it was this guy, and it was meeting needs. And so she kept going until his return.
Well, people are coming, hey. If it's growing out of the house and into the barn, and it's the barn church, what the heck?
Oh, I just love her. That is inspiring. I love it.
She is a go-getter woman, hey.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And I love that she was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I am going to keep going with this.
Yeah. The Lord has called me to do this. Like, you have fun at your conference. Yeah. Wow. So now she's homeschooling her 10 children. She's, one-on-one discipling and raising these kids. And now she's pastoring this church, basically, leading this church, and the church that, John and Charles Wesley are growing up in and being spiritually formed in. That's incredible. So could you maybe tell us maybe about like what's impacted you, and what should we take away from her life in this 21st century church context? I know, there's lots of mums who will watch our podcast, and, I'm not sure if all of them have 10 kids, but, have, different numbers of kids, and people who are in ministry and just trying to juggle and balance it all. Like, what can we learn from this inspiring woman of God, and how has she helped to shape, the church in history?
Oh, we can take so much from her. I think one of the things that I find so inspiring in my own life, and it's shaped me greatly, is the legend of her in the kitchen when she wanted her quiet time with Jesus, her prayer time. She would just put this apron over her head, and the kids knew that when Mum has the apron over her head, she is praying, and you do not interrupt her.
Wow.
And we see that and we go, wow, against all odds with 10 kids, like that is a huge achievement. But I wonder if she would, if she could look at the time we're in now, I wonder if she would look at all the distractions, that are around us, that she would look at, this vast, infinite entertainment that is available to us and think the same thing, like, wow. Against all odds, they're carving out this time for prayer. And I think she, as a mum and a woman of God, would be really impressed with the young people, with anybody who would take time to, shut off all the distractions and the entertainment, and to still our heart before the Lord, and to, begin with what's most important. I mean, I wonder what prayers did she pray under that apron? I mean, the impact that she had, like the impact that her sons made. What prayers did she pray over them? Oh, incredible. And so I'm inspired by that. I carve out time to pray. It's important. I often feel like I don't have time, but I don't want to just even have 10 minutes. And I know for some, perhaps you're watching this and you're like, 10 minutes is all I got. That's a really big effort. And look, when my kids were really little, that would have been a big effort too. But now that they're a bit older, I'm able to spend an hour, 2 hours in prayer. I'm about to take some busy mums on a 24-hour prayer retreat. I'm going to lead them just
That's
to
so
go,
cool.
just to be like, hey, we can do this. This is needed. It's powerful.
That's beautiful. Well, I know there would be a lot of people sort of watching that even if they did have, an hour to pray or 10 minutes to pray, that they might not know where to start or how to practically approach, like, what is an hour worth of praying, or let alone 24 hours worth of prayer? What does that look like? So maybe can you give us some insight into, how you would approach that prayer space?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things I like to do. Well, I'm going to start with something that I found deeply encouraging to me, because I always found in my prayer time I could feel really guilty because my mind would wander, and I adored Jesus so much. And so I would feel like, oh, I'm so sorry that I came to spend time with you. And then I get distracted because my mind would wander. And then I read this amazing thing that I found so freeing to me in my prayer life. And it was in the book How to Pray, actually, by Pete Greig. And he said, every time our mind wanders off, it's an opportunity to choose him again. And so then that just really freed me from it being a negative thing to a positive thing. So every time my mind wandered, it was, Lord, I'm choosing you again. So that might be encouraging. And then the other thing I like to do is I like to follow the Lord's Prayer. Start with adoration, start with worship, and kind of, go through it like that. And, because then you've got your moment of your kingdom come, your will be done. You've got your intercessory, you've got, even just, thanking God. You've got, it's a beautiful one to pray. Then you start to go into spiritual warfare, deliver me from evil.
Come on.
And so I love to go through that. And, sometimes it's just contemplative prayer.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's right.
And it's actually just, being and stilling my heart. allowing my scattered senses to come together. And sometimes that's just so powerful. I'll get pictures and words and things that I wouldn't have had, or he'll reveal to me something that if I was, busy just talking and doing all of the praying, I wouldn't have actually been able to hear. So
that's so beautiful. It just reminded me of a sermon by Bill Johnson, where he talks about part of his prayer is he'll stick on adoration of the Lord, like you were talking about, sort of that, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. And he would just like stick on one point of adoration, but just pick one facet of who God is and just like sort of exhaust everything that he can out of like that one image of God. So if he's thinking about like, the Lord is my shepherd, like, Lord, thank you that you are my shepherd. Thank you that you lead me beside still waters. Thank you that you provide for me, that you keep me from evil, you protect me. And so he would sort of like go on about, it's so beautiful. And he would talk about how like, when you do that, the Lord actually gives you fresh revelation into that facet of who he is. It's like you're exhausting all that you know, and then he's sort of revealing more about who he is in that space as well. And when I've practiced it, I'm like, oh wow, this like really works. Like it's just like supernaturally, like I'm getting this revelation about who God is. So I love that idea about just stilling your soul and just meditating on one thought, or the Lord's Prayer, or even that silence and solitude and stuff that you're talking about. Just letting the Lord sort of fill your mind and heart. So beautiful. Yeah. And I love that Susanna Wesley was a woman of prayer, because I have a conviction that, all revivals, all great, like powerful, world-changing ministries, I can trace it always back to prayer. Like there's some prayer element that was the catalyst for all of this sort of stuff. So I think it's just so essential. And I love that. Yeah. That we can trace their ministry back to that.
You can. And even it's amazing for me. So my Oma, she found Jesus in like a Billy Graham, like revival meeting.
Yeah.
And the prayers she prayed over her grandchildren, it's amazing that and she was a prayer warrior. Oh my goodness. She had a prayer room and she was amazing. But it's amazing to see, and it's really humbling actually in my life that there is so many opportunities that I have, and the life that I live, I know was her prayer for me. And she's been in heaven for quite a while, but I love that her prayers are still having power here on this earth. And
it's beautiful. Wow. Just that legacy and that impact that you can make generationally.
Exactly.
Incredible, hey. So
exactly.
Cool. Awesome. Well, so do you have any favorite quotes or anything that Susanna Wesley has said that has made a mark on you, or that you like, or that people know her for, these quotes?
She doesn't have too many recorded quotes, and so the one I'm going to share is actually just quite funny. So because I love me a strong-willed woman, and
come on, you're like, go girl.
So she was absolutely that. And so her and Samuel had this one particular disagreement about the kings. And so she supported one, and when he had passed away and his son-in-law came into power, I think that was how it worked. Samuel supported the other. And anyway, they were in such disagreement that they separated for 5 months. And she apparently said that she would apologize if she had done something wrong or had sinned, but because she hadn't, she wouldn't do so for expediency.
Oh my God.
So
if I was wrong, I would apologize. That's so funny.
I would, but I'm not. And so hilarious. 5 months. Wow. I'm not saying that's a great example. I wouldn't do that.
No, not at all.
I think that's funny.
We don't endorse that.
No. But that gives us a glimpse into this kind of powerhouse that she was.
Yes, really. And you can see that sort of feistiness. Obviously, it took that to do all that she's doing and manage everything that she's managing, and just that grit that she must have had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in the face of all of that hardship. It's just incredible. Wow.
Amazing.
So is there anything else that we should know about Susanna Wesley if people want to, suss her out, or is there anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, well, I actually think there was one more thing about her life that I found so beautiful, was that when Charles and John and all the other kids had actually grown up, she continued her spiritual direction to them through letters. And so even when they were away traveling, she would be sending them their letters. And so they would continue this kind of spiritual direction conversation as they got older. And I just really loved that she didn't retire from that post. So one part of parenting, that did finish, the education side and the, meeting their needs and the raising up. But this part, she didn't retire from it. And I love that.
Yeah, so beautiful. That's so inspiring. I want to go and read those letters. I want to try and find them and see what she said to John and Charles. So cool. Awesome. So, Pastor Katie, if people want to get hold of you, if they want to connect with you, maybe they want to visit your church, how can they find all the information on that stuff?
Yeah, amazing. Well, if you want to come find our church in the locations that we have, we'd love for you. You could just come check out our website, and we've got church in Mount Maunganui and one in Auckland, New Zealand, and they're both beautiful communities of faith, and you'd be more than welcome. Otherwise, our podcasts and everything are on there, or else we are on Instagram. I'm not very, onto it with that kind of stuff. I do the minimum.
Yeah, nice. That's a good attitude to have towards Instagram, I think.
Yeah, that's purposeful.
And just what's the address of your website? Can you remind us again?
Oh, yeah. It's www.curatechurch.com.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us and giving us some insight into this inspiring woman of God, Susanna Wesley. I know I've been stirred up to pray more and to make space in my schedule just to, spend time with the Lord, and just inspired by the power of her prayers and what they have the power to do. But thank you so much for joining us, Pastor Katie, and thank you to everyone else who's joined us today on the Eagle and Child podcast. We will catch you next time for our next episode. See you then. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning into the Eagle and Child podcast. That's all from us for today. If you want to support us, you can like, subscribe, or drop us a review. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram @Eagle and Child podcast. We'll catch you next time. Much love.